Thank you all for joining us tonight, and also want to thank our association sponsors. Without them, this wouldn't happen. AT&T, Encode, Ericsson, M-Blocks, as well as GSMA, and appreciate that. Also for tonight's sponsors, I want to thank Windows iPhone, Stone Resources, as well as Platypi. So, and that is plural for platypus.
That's correct.
Got it.
A plus.
Okay, and tonight we're also partnering with TAG, and I want to thank TAG for partnering with us tonight, and TAG's sponsors, particularly for the gold sponsors, learning gold sponsors. We've got ASTD and the I-5 Alliance, as well as Performance. So thank you, TAG, very much. I appreciate that.
Appreciate the introduction. Now, just as long as nobody asks me to live up to it, I'm in good shape. But, I'm excited about being here tonight for this collaboration, which I hope will be followed by many other similar type collaborations. I think wireless impact to the way we learn is dramatic, disruptive. Anybody that knows me knows I've been yapping about this Fitbit that I'm wearing that has enabled me to lose weight in a way that, without teaching me a thing. But it's affected my performance. So I think I encourage all of those of you that know about wireless to make sure you get to know people who know about learning and see how we can come together to change performance. My job tonight is to introduce Dan Richards as a moderator. And I've known Dan for a while, and I've got this little cheat sheet that tells me everything I should know about Dan, and it's all true. It's all good stuff. Dan's done a lot of phenomenal work, a lot of projects in the learning and training space with a lot of names that you'd recognize. Names like Coca-Cola and Seagate and ADP and Federated. And it would be good to ask him about those names to find out some more about what he's learning. But the real reason you want to know Dan is because there's two other names that he works with that keep him ahead of the curve, keep him educated, keep him motivated. So if you have a chance to catch up to Dan, ask him about Sean and Beck. And say, to Dan, what did you learn from Sean and Beck today? And what do you think you'll learn tomorrow? So I'm sure if you follow up and ask them that, you'll have a very good conversation and you'll learn something that will probably be life-changing. So with no further ado, I know you're here somewhere, Dan. It's up to you. I'll leave it up to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to start the right way. I'm going to start ladies first.
Oh, okay. Who will that be?
All right, we have the luxury of having Susan Levy with us tonight. She's the Director of Sales, Training, and Operations with Thermo Fisher Scientific. Susan has over 15 years in management and executive roles in the technology and financial services industries, with a diverse background and skill set. She's held leadership positions in sales operations, trading, technical sales, and sales support for hardware, software, and services. Susan led a global training and development organization focused on delivering sales training for sellers, business partners, and customers, and she has an extensive knowledge of sales optimization and operations, training processes, leadership development, tools, metrics, and successful learning practices. We also have with us Doug Dell, who is furthest away from me. Doug is Senior Vice President of Crawford Educational Services. He's responsible for managing all online, classroom, virtual training programs, and Crawford's continuing education business serving the insurance industry. His responsibilities include technical development of the learning infrastructure and management of the CE compliance platform, supporting professional licensing for Crawford and many of its customers. Prior to joining Crawford, he served as Vice President of Global Learning for NCR, managing NCR University and all learning programs for the company. Before moving to Atlanta, he spent 8 years with Philips Healthcare as Global Director of Learning Services, during which time he managed Philips' continuing education business, supporting more than 250,000 healthcare professionals. He's a senior board advisor to the Atlanta chapter of the Association for Talent Development and a member of the HR Advisory Council for the United Way of Greater Atlanta. He holds an MBA in Marketing Management from Pace University Lubin School of Business. Welcome. And it's great to have such qualified people, but it takes so long to read their qualifications.
Yeah.
All right, one more.
Much shorter.
Thank you. All right, we have with us Brandon Carson. He's the Director of Multichannel Learning and Innovation at the Home Depot. Brandon is responsible for delivering mobile and social learning experiences for all Home Depot associates, and there are quite a few of those. His immediate focus is to define the design, development, and implementation evaluation methodology and standards for multi-channel learning to support over 300,000 associates across 2,200 stores nationally, and to ensure all training efforts are executed in accordance with those standards. Additional responsibilities include strategy and execution of mobile collaborative learning environments to increase confidence, productivity, and innovation. And Brandon holds an MED in e-learning technology and design and a BA in business communications, as well as advanced ISPI certification in analysis. Everybody, a big round of applause for our volunteer panelists. Doug, let's start with you.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about your organization. Give us a little background, first of all, so we can appreciate where you've come from with your mobile learning and where you're going, how you bring your people and your content together.
Great. Well, first of all, we're Crawford & Company. We are an Atlanta native organization, 70 years old, about $1 billion in revenue, and right across the street. We focus on claims management, and that means when a claim occurs, the carrier will call us to handle that claim, put a value on it, and from the value valuation, the person's been, the insured gets their money. That's the important thing that we do. From a training perspective, we've been traditionally very classroom oriented, and the big shift for us has been more to virtual training, which is not necessarily a mobile device, but being able to take training remotely. And the focus has been really important in changing how we model our training and our design, but also it's about operational effectiveness, and that is that traditionally you pull someone out of a class to a class here in Atlanta maybe for a week or 2 weeks, and they are just not producing at all. But with our model, we work part-time, so they work maybe in the morning in a class, and all afternoon they can go back to work and handle important elements of the office. So the point is they get work done while they're also learning. So it's a fundamental shift in terms of how things have been done traditionally.
Great, thank you. Let's talk to Susan a little bit. Susan, you do a lot of sales training, and tell us about how you reach your sales force out on the field a little bit, what kind of information they're absorbing, how they're getting it, and what that means to your organization.
Okay, can you hear me? So, first of all, should I say what Thermo Fisher does?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I'm working for Thermo Fisher Scientific. I was with IBM for 25 years and with First Data for 2 or 3 years, and I've been a consultant for a few years. I started with Thermo Fisher in January because Thermo Fisher Scientific is in the healthcare industry. They have all kinds of products. They do Nalgene bottles, even if you know that. So that's sold at REI. It's an exercise like water bottle. But lab equipment, refrigerators, centrifuges. I'm actually in the clinical diagnostic division, so they do a lot of prenatal screening tests, the assays and the biomarkers to test people for sepsis or drugs of abuse, those kinds of things. So a completely different kind of product set and company that I'm used to. They have historically, Thermo Fisher, grown by acquisition and not really integrated. And in my short time there, I really feel like the healthcare industry, at least in the Thermo Fisher space, is doing what telecom and technology did 10 or 15 years ago. They're really trying to become more efficient, more effective. There's a huge focus on how they're training their sales force now, whether they're on a CRM, a customer relationship management system. So I'm actually in a fantastic role now helping them make their sales force effective. A big part of it is sales training. So what we did in the beginning of the year, to get to your question, is roll out iPads to the sales force. But I have a lot of opinions about how you do that well. I also did it at a financial services company, at First Data, and there's really some good ways to do that and some bad ways to do that. Along with it, you do have the benefit of what we're talking about here tonight, just-in-time learning, bringing webinars and lectures and just-in-time information to the sales force that makes them hugely effective. And, even to the point where they can learn something in a class, kind of the same way that Doug talked about, and then they can, 4 days later, pull down the presentation, cut it down to 5 slides, and walk in and pitch to their customer. So those are the kinds of things we do with sales training.
Very good, thank you. Okay, Brandon, let's talk with you a little bit. You've got no small task on your hands.
Yeah.
As you figure out a mobile strategy, a learning strategy for 300,000 associates. I know a couple things about Home Depot, but you can still feel free to introduce us to the organization. I know that's where I get the shovels that Sean and Beck use to dig up my yard and put holes in the yard to build their forts. But that's as much as I know about Home Depot. Maybe you can enlighten us.
We sell hammers. Not hard to do, really. Yes, so part of the interesting thing going on right now is in retail, we're undergoing what I like to call the second revolution in retail. The first revolution was about 60 years ago when the retail operations decided, oh, let's start buying lots of property and let's start building big boxes and let's have people come in and buy things. And that worked really well for quite a while. And now what's going on is a transformational shift has occurred in consumer behavior and in the way people like to buy products. Thank you, Amazon, places like that. So the second revolution we're undergoing right now, we refer to as the interconnected retail experience, whereas big physical properties really aren't necessarily the only thing that brings value to customers. Well, Home Depot, of course, those are pretty big boxes that we have and lots of big things in them. And like our CEO said, drones won't necessarily deliver a washer and dryer to you. But we do have a lot of customers who come to us through what we call this interconnected experience now, which is a combination of online and physical. And customers expect us to be able to provide them a frictionless experience across online and physical as well. So the revolution I'm talking about is how do we create across that many associates, that many stores, how do we create an experience that is seamless and meets new customer expectations and buying patterns and buying behaviors? That's our biggest, one of our biggest challenges right now is to figure out how we do that and meet those expectations in a way that makes sense for our customers, because our stores can have 40 to 50,000 items in them, but online there's more than 300,000 items available, and how do we make that buying experience really meet customers' expectations now? So that's our challenge from a retail industry environment. So on top of that, learning organizations are tasked with helping to make our associates be able to keep that customer experience where it should be, especially with smarter customers who have small devices that they can do a lot of research and investigation before they come into a store or while they are buying, in motion or whatever. So it's another layer of challenge, if you will, that we have to make sure that we can keep up with the smarter customer as well.
So you're transitioning through that process now to start to address that need, essentially.
Well, our transformation is one that I think you touched on a little, Doug, is that, right now we have to think about how do we meet customer expectations at the moment of need. And training is historically looked at, not at just our organization, but in retail in general and probably across other industries as well. Training is looked at as almost something like a transactional event that occurs at a different time, not while I'm working. And the shift that has to occur is that training always happens, right? We're learning all the time, and for an associate that may work at a retail environment like the Home Depot, there's a lot to know, and they may be coming from a place where they don't know a lot about home improvement. And so how do we give them the lift in the aisle that will help make that experience be as frictionless as possible for a customer that may even be smarter about home improvement than the person they're talking to? So what we're working on is how to get that, what I call the 3 J's, that just in time, just enough, and just for me, information to the person that needs it, either the associate or the customer, in the work stream while things are happening. And so, looking at training in modules of, hour-long modules or 30-minute long modules or even 8-hour-long modules in an environment outside of the context of you performing your work doesn't work. and we don't want to do that anymore. So we want to provide that lift, and it's almost like an aggregation of performance support and learning while it's going on and while it's most impactful in that experience. And so that's a big transformation, not just for a retail environment like ours, but for any learning organization that's struggling with how to get knowledge to people at the time they need it, and for people who, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to give product knowledge to an associate that usually takes someone years to get about how to build a house or how to fix a toilet. I'm not going to pretend to want to teach that to someone. I want to give them the information and the critical thinking tools they need to just help that customer at that moment. I don't want to pretend like I'm going to teach them everything about how to build a house. It's an interesting shift, and it's one that we're struggling with a bit.